Things are heating up with Ottawa between Saskatchewan and Scott Moe over collecting of carbon tax, but he's got some support in his corner, and I'm not surprised to see it. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. When you look at what's going on in Saskatchewan, if you haven't been, let me bring you up to speed. Of course, Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan. Some people saying I don't cover him enough on the channel, but I think it's high time we talk about it because I've been waiting to see how this builds since January 1st. Of course, Scott Moe coming out last year to say that because Sask Energy was a crown corporation, that Saskatchewan would no longer be collecting carbon tax on behalf of their people in order to make things more affordable for its citizens over the winter months, I guess, as the cost to heat your homes has escalated dramatically, especially with Justin Trudeau's threats of an increased 4 times the tax starting April 1st. It's either 3 or 4 times. I don't care. It's still too much regardless. But here we go with Scott Moe. Now, this has been drawn out for the last roughly 8 weeks as the federal government making threat after threat. Well, now it's official. Stephen Guilbeault, Mr. Looney Tunes, who was a convicted felon, I might add. It's always important to mention that because some people don't know that about Stephen Guilbeault, that he was a convicted felon prior to becoming the environmental minister in the House of Commons. I don't know how that happens. But of course, federal environment minister calls Premier Moe immoral for flouting carbon price law. Stephen Guilbeault says measures will have to be taken. Of course, as we see here, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says Ottawa has to take action against Saskatchewan for breaking the federal carbon price law. Premier Scott Moe said last week that Saskatchewan would not submit the money it owes for the carbon price on natural gas as required on February 29th. Moe is protesting Ottawa's decision to exempt heating oil from its levy, but not natural gas, which is used by 8 in 10 households in Saskatchewan. So again, if you look at what the federal government tried to propose back in December, that Justin Trudeau, again, and mostly for people in the East, he said it was Canada-wide, but for people who were using heat pumps for sources of heat, that he would get a carbon tax exemption for them. And again, Saskatchewan saying that they're going to protest by simply not collecting carbon tax. There should have been a break for all Canadians because, again, when you look at natural gas, it's one of the cleanest forms of heating your home. And even when they talk about things like liquid natural gas and the safety and I guess effectiveness of using it to heat your home versus heat pumps that use diesel fuel. But here we go. Under the law, fuel distributors such as Sask Energy are to submit monthly reports on the amount of fuel sold and carbon price collected on that fuel. Failing to submit those reports or pay amounts owed carries consequences, including fines based on how much wasn't paid and jail time. So again, they threatened Scott Moe in any way possible. Stephen Guilbeault says it is immoral and irresponsible for a premier to decide not to follow the law. Well, I hate to break it to Stephen Guilbeault, but one thing he doesn't realize is that this is the province's jurisdiction. It is not the federal government's. We've seen this time and time again as Stephen Guilbeault has gone to court with Alberta over the plastics ban, which was ruled as unconstitutional. We've seen him go to court with Alberta over multiple things that have been ruled as unconstitutional, all the time striking down his single-use plastics, the carbon tax. We've seen it with the Emergency Act being ruled as unconstitutional. Everything that this Liberal government props forward and says, you must do this, or you must understand we had a threshold for that, it's all come back as bupkis. If Premier Scott Moe decides that he wants to start breaking laws and not respecting federal laws, then measures will have to be taken, Guilbeault said in response to a question from a reporter. We can't let this happen. What if somebody tomorrow decides that they don't want to respect other federal laws, criminal laws? What would happen if a prime minister or a premier of a province would do that, he went on. Well, that's an interesting question because Stephen Guilbeault once scaled Ralph Klein's house and broke the law by harassing and intimidating them. So it'd be interesting to know what he thinks should happen when somebody who wants to be in political office decides that they're not going to respect some form of the law. But Stephen Guilbeault goes on, it's irresponsible and frankly immoral on his part. We can have disagreements about things like climate change, but to be so reckless and unspeakable, really? Yeah, Steve, really. On Monday, MOE retaliated the federal carbon pricing law that should be eliminated. It's driving inflation, and we are still paying a good chunk in other areas. And the position from the government of Saskatchewan's perspective hasn't changed, nor will it change. So, again, he's not caving to any kind of pressure here. It should be removed on all products for all, Mo said. Last week, Sask Energy Minister Dustin Duncan said he knew there might be consequences to his government's decision, but that it came out as a sense of fairness. It's not something I take lightly, Duncan said February 29th. Last fall, the federal Liberals moved to give heating oil a 3-year carve-out from carbon pricing, arguing that families using a product needed more time and financial aid to replace their oil furnaces with electric heat pumps, which again, if you look at Canada, I believe it's once you dip below minus 20, insurance companies won't cover heat pumps because they fail to operate. Heating oil is about 3 times as expensive as natural gas before carbon pricing, and oil prices jumped more than 50% in recent years, providing a financial incentive to replace it without the addition of a carbon price. Federal data shows 1.2 million homes in Canada still use heating oil, and almost 1/4 are in Atlantic Canada. So again, that benefit mostly goes to Eastern Canada. 1.2 million homes out of roughly 40 million people in the country. Now, I know that we're still below 40 million, but I say 40 because of all the illegal migrants. let's move on. The Liberals were accused of making decisions based on politics, with their poll numbers on the East Coast tanking. The government party now has few seats in the prairies, but a majority of seats in the Atlantic. It could be a while before any consequences are known. While Saskatchewan has been very public about not making the payment for privacy reasons, Canada Revenue Agency will not confirm when a specific client fails to submit a payment on time, even if it is a provincial government. The CRA does have compliance processes for seeking payment or documentation before turning to the courts. Again, they can do things like garnishments or freeze your bank accounts. Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson said last week one consequence will be cutting the carbon rebates sent to Saskatchewan households. Well, if they're not paying the carbon tax, then I guess it doesn't matter if they're getting the rebates or not, because they're saving money. Justin Trudeau often touts about how this is $1,900 a year, when in fact you're paying out close to $3,000, according to Pierre Poilievre. The rebates are now based on how much money is collected in each province and will be lowered, he said, if less money comes in. So again, they're trying to say, well, if Saskatchewan doesn't want to contribute, then other people are going to get lower rebates, and it's all Saskatchewan's fault. well, hold on to your horses, because Danielle Smith came riding in, and she's made a very bold statement that Alberta stands with Saskatchewan and Premier Scott Moe in their fight against the unfair and unconstitutional region-specific and fuel-specific application of the carbon tax. We agree the retail carbon tax should be scrapped and will continue to take every effort to see that it is overturned. Further, it is utter hypocrisy to listen to Minister Stephen Guilbeault talk about the rule of law and unethical behavior. This is the same man who scaled the CN Tower illegally, putting lives at risk, trespassed on the home of Ralph Klein and Colleen Klein, while Colleen was home alone, and tramples on the Constitution of Canada on an almost daily basis, as evidenced by his continued Supreme Court and federal court losses, including C-69 and plastics. This man clearly resents the West and our right to develop our resources, and he is entirely unfit to be environment minister. It is long past time he be replaced by the Prime Minister. And of course, they got a nice little mugshot picture of Stephen Guilbeault here and the rule of law. I mean, Danielle Smith with an utter mic drop there. And it's interesting to see that, again, while Alberta doesn't have the same abilities to essentially cut off the carbon tax payment because we are not running a crown corporation similar to Saskatchewan, I would assume that Premier Danielle Smith has some plans in the near future, again, being very bold and stating where we stand when it comes to Scott Moe and Saskatchewan. Of course, I personally think she's made the right call. I stand behind Scott Moe. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I think Saskatchewan's in the right hands with a man like Scott Moe, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the future as this continues. We're going to see how wild it gets. Again, I'll be covering all those updates here on the channel. But ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Help us get it out there in the algorithm. Anytime you guys like, you comment, it helps boost us out there. And our videos have been getting capped off recently. We've had a YouTube shadow ban in effect. So anything you can do to help the channel get out there is help for us. Again, if it's your first time here, I hope that you've enjoyed this video and it earns your subscription. Apparently 73% of my viewers are unsubscribed, so make sure you hit that button so that you're notified anytime our videos drop. And join us here on the channel for live streams, including this upcoming Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central, where I'll be replacing my Friday night stream as I'm out of town, doing an update as to what happened in the past week, what's coming up in the week ahead, and we'll be resuming our Friday night streams as of March 15th, where, of course, I will be doing the infamous one chip challenge here on the stream to celebrate 25,000 subscribers. It's going to be a fun show, and well, if it's anything like the last time I tried to take the death chip, it's going to be entertaining to say the least. So make sure to turn on your notifications, hit that button, join us live. It's going to be a fun time. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.